Sheffield, England. The year is 1856. Henry Bessemer stands in his workshop, staring at molten iron glowing orange-red. He's about to do something that makes absolutely no sense. He's going to blow cold air through this hot metal, and he's convinced it will make the metal even hotter. Everyone would tell him he's insane. You don't make hot things hotter by blowing cold wind on them. But Bessemer has a theory, a crazy theory, and if he's wrong, he's about to waste everything on a spectacular failure. He signals to his assistant. The air blast begins, and what happens next breaks every rule of common sense. Let's rewind, because to understand why this moment matters, we need to talk about a material that was more expensive than silver: steel. In the 1850s, steel was a luxury item. You used it for knives and razors, never for construction, never for bridges or railroads. It was just too expensive. Making steel meant heating small 30-pound batches in clay pots for hours. One pot, 30 pounds, hours of work, massive fuel costs. This is why steel cost more than silver. This is why nobody used it for anything large. 2 years earlier, Bessemer had dinner with Napoleon III in Paris. Napoleon needed steel cannons for the Crimean War, but steel was impossibly expensive. Bessemer rode back to his hotel thinking, why was steel so expensive? Because it required so much fuel to heat. What if there was a way to make steel without adding fuel at all? It sounds ridiculous, but Bessemer knew chemistry. Iron contains impurities like carbon and silicon, and these impurities burn when exposed to oxygen. What if you could make the impurities themselves become the fuel? What if you could blow air through molten iron, and the carbon would burn so hot that it would keep the metal molten while purifying it? Backwards logic, completely counterintuitive, but chemically, it might work. Back in Sheffield, Bessemer built a converter, a metal pot that could hold molten iron with pipes at the bottom to blast air through. The first tests were chaotic. Metal splattered everywhere. But Bessemer kept adjusting, and then it worked. When the air blast started, the molten iron didn't cool down. It got brighter, hotter. Sparks shot up in a spectacular fountain of fire. The flames changed color from red to orange to yellow to white as different impurities burned away. For 15 minutes, the converter roared like a dragon. Then suddenly, the flames dropped. Bessemer tilted the converter and poured out the metal. When it cooled, he had steel. Made in minutes instead of hours, without adding any fuel. The backwards idea actually worked. In 1856, Bessemer presented his discovery titled "The Manufacture of Iron Without Fuel." Ironmasters immediately started applying for licenses. This was going to revolutionize everything. And then disasters began. The first companies produced brittle, useless steel. Angry manufacturers accused Bessemer of fraud. Bessemer investigated obsessively. The problem? Phosphorus. Bessemer had been using pure Swedish iron ore, but most iron ore contained phosphorus, which made the steel brittle at high temperatures. This should have been the end. Most of the world's iron ore was contaminated, but Bessemer refused to quit. He recalled all the licenses, refunded the fees, and bet everything on building his own steel works using pure ore. By 1858, Bessemer was producing steel for less than iron cost. Steel, which had been more expensive than silver, was now cheaper than iron. Within a decade, steel production exploded. The Bessemer process spread across Britain, Europe, and America. And everything changed. With cheap steel, you could suddenly build things that were impossible before. Railway tracks made from Bessemer steel lasted years instead of months. The American Transcontinental Railroad, built with Bessemer steel. Ships could have steel hulls large enough to carry thousands of passengers. The great ocean liners, Bessemer steel. And cities could grow upward. Before Bessemer, buildings were limited by brick and stone. You could only stack so much before lower levels collapsed. Steel frame construction changed everything. You could build a skeleton of steel beams supporting tremendous weight. In 1885, Chicago built the Home Insurance Building, 10 stories tall, the first skyscraper. Its frame was entirely Bessemer steel. Today, every major city has hundreds of steel-framed buildings. Some reach over 100 floors. Look at any modern skyline. You're looking at the legacy of that moment in Sheffield when Bessemer tried something that made no logical sense.